r/AskReddit. You have 30 minutes to hide a USB drive in your house. Your house will then be raided by police, detectives and some FBI agents all searching for the USB. Where do you hide it so that it won't be found? I think we need to check the ARP's hard drive. And everyone else's apparently. Damn, what do you guys have on your USB drives? All mine are old school assignments I'll never look at again but still have just in case. Inside a cat shit in the litter box. Inside a cat shit in the litter box. I'm gonna wrap it in some plastic, then down the pipe it goes. Or up the pipe. If I don't need easy access to it when they leave, I'll remove a wall outlet and push it through a hole on the back of the electric box into the wall cavity. Impossible to find without ripping out all the drywall since there will be no evidence that it was put in there once I put the outlet back in. Do justice and the sniffer dog would have it in 10 minutes. Go one further, the police triumphantly find the chip, but continue searching from due diligence. The dog finds other chips, and again alerts officers to the original hide. Nothing inside. Extreme diligence runs the void finder and metal detector just in case. No holes, no metal save the screws holding perfectly normal drywall. Even careful measuring of the hide returns normal widths on everything. Diligence complete. Officers take the key back to the lab and find it heavily encrypted. Their office nerds are confident and can be cracked in a few months, may a year. They get to work. Office nerds then have an amazing rate of suicide over the next few years because the encryption is based on Depeche Mode music and they get the press to go on. The one Depeche Mode fan in the group succeeds but finds a second layer of encryption based on smooth jazz. PD has to hire a new group of lab nerds, thus never finding out the chip is merely a decoy. The actual chip is still in the carefully searched wall, behind the outlet box, covered by a normal looking 2 half layers of drywall with cut off screw heads over the chip. If somehow the officers do find it, there is a single unencrypted file with a nude photo of myself, thus anyone foolish enough to even look at it is permanently struck blind. I can only imagine that right now somewhere in the world there is a group of FBI agents raiding a house, sweating, not being able to find a specific USB. Their boss is on their ass. Their last hope is to consult the all-knowing members of the r/AskReddit community. Bury it in the insulation in the attic. It would take days to sift through it all to find a USB drive. The bonus would be that they'd find my tape measure that I lost a few years ago. Nice try. Come back with a warrant. Plays Cherry Pie by warrant while searching house. Glued to the underside of my wheelie bin handle, there's a space right under it which should be enough for a USB drive. If they flip it over to rummage through the trash, then they'll be holding it with their hand. Either that or under the insulation inside my attic. I like the idea of them having it in their hand and not knowing it. Take out floating rubber ball thingy from toilet tank. Cut a slit in the bottom of the floating rubber ball thingy and shove it inside of that. Super glue the slit shut and replace it. Duckman, that's some high level thinking. Pull the latch plate off my door frame. Chisel a slightly deeper hole. Pop then USB in there and replace the plate. Who would ever think to look there? What if the FBI opens your door using the shotgun method? In the broken porcelain on my sink, then patch it with instant noodles. Well, that gives me enough time to pop the circuit board out of the casing and just randomly solder it to a nondescript part of another piece of electronics in my house. I can then burn the casing. My CDT teacher would be so proud. Unless they're really good at their job, they're not finding it. Edit. Thank you for the gold, etc. for my very silly plan. Inside the notch where my basketball rim backboard connects to the garage, I remember thinking, wow, I could hide something here when I put up the backboard. Give it to my 4 years old and say, don't lose this, but poof, that thing is gone for at least a year. This made me think of just putting it in a Nerf gun and shooting it in an empty room. Those darts just disappear. I'll tape it to the back of an LSE of a fan and turn the fan on. And on the USB was stored the last copy of You Spin Me Round by Dead or Alive. My yard, nobody goes in there and comes back alive. Your yard is peppered with landmines too. My brother died last year, and substance abuse played a large part in his passing. He had a very successful business that he sold, so he was quite wealthy. At one point, he decided it was a great time to explore leveraging his position to buy Bitcoin. He borrowed $500,000 in December of 18 and bought Bitcoin. But he became paranoid when he started using Xanax heavily. He hid $25,000 in his house when he was wasted and couldn't remember where. He told his housekeeper he'd give her $5,000 if she found it. She did. At the bottom of a box of Ziploc baggies. His final act of paranoia was to place all of his Bitcoin on an encrypted cold storage USB drive that he hid in the house. Several encrypted drives were found in the house, but nobody knows the password. He had a synchronized encrypted Apple Notes password file on his Apple devices, but nobody knows the password to that. So there is $1 million plus sitting on a USB drive, but no way to get at it. Put it in the sink with all the dirty dishes. Seems like everything that gets put in the sink instantly turns invisible to everyone but me. Climb onto the roof. About midway up the roof, lift an asphalt shingle and slide the USB stick in as far as I can. Press the shingle back down and then get off the roof and store the ladder. Good luck finding my data now. Well, first of all, I'm using a USB drive-sized adapter that saves onto a micro SD card. So I won't be hiding that entire thing, just the micro SD card. There's no way that will ping a metal detector of any type. Then I'll just drop it behind the wood floor trim somewhere in the house or in the gap next to the kitchen cabinet where there's a DVD copy of Three Stooges Collection Volume 2 from when Netflix used to mail you DVDs. I'm homeless. There's no house for them to raid. Checkmate. You can hide it everywhere in the streets. Put it inside a hot dog and give it to my dog. He never chews anything and just gulps it down. The next time he takes a dump, I retrieve it. OP is a cop on the scene serving a warrant trying to find a USB stick they are certain is on site. Rules aren't super clear. It dismantle the drive and hide its parts in a few random locations. I'll say everything is allowed as long as the data can still be retrieved if enough of the drive is found. Under the dead body in the freezer. Going by a lot of the responses I've seen, you'd be better off putting it inside the dead body's anus. Take the batteries out of your mum's dildo and put it where the batteries were. What if the cop wants to use it? Well, I'm not about to be a rude host. You forgot to add asking for a friend. Address it to yourself and drop it through the neighbor's mail slot. Make sure it's a neighbor that works late. They won't find it because it's not there, and then hopefully your neighbor will notice that they got your mail and return it. Standard posting it to yourself would also work pretty well. Gives you a couple days to breathe. My other thought was climbing high in my tree and gluing it to a branch, because which officer is so committed that they're checking the top branches of trees? Ain't no tree climbing sniffer dogs either. Who the duck even hides USBs in trees, right? I put it in a sock and then put the sock in the dryer. I turn the dryer on and when it's done, bam, nobody will ever find the sock, therefore the hard drive ever again. My conspiracy theory is that the FBI has been stealing socks out of dryers for decades on the chance that people were hiding stuff in them. I'd leave it out in front of my sew. She will always tidy away my stuff and I'll never be able to find it. Only the other day I was working on something, left the room for 5 minutes and poof, everything was gone and in several locations including Narnia. Do you have a magic laundry basket too? There's a hole in the wall behind my TV to run hidden cables to the soundbar below it. I'd push it into that hole, and it would fall to the bottom of the wall where there's no way to access it, but I'd know exactly where it was, and could retrieve it in seconds by knocking a hole in the wall at floor level. My house is an old Victorian with lath and plaster walls. When I do this, things can end up anywhere. In ceilings, all the way in the basement, in the walls on a lower floor etc. Copy onto a microSD card, shove the card into a functional USB stick enclosure. Even if they find it, the data won't show if you plug it in. Also hide a bunch of USB everywhere, preferably with large chunks of encrypted data that would show up as random bits. They force you to give them the key in court and boom, Risk Astley will never give you up. My secret hiding spot is worth so much more than internet points. Cut a small hole in the drywall above the door in a closet. Push the USB drive through the hole so it's inside the wall, on top of the door frame. Cover the hole with dried X and smooth it over with a putty knife. By the time the cops are looking in your closet, the Dridux will be the same white color as the rest of the closet walls. This sounds like an FBI in their first semester of training. Go outside, buy 10,000 USBs, throw them in a pile and hide the normal one inside a book in my library. Oh, that's easy. Unscrew anything electronic that won't get seized, a TV, power strip, washing machine, whatever. Tape it to some empty space inside. Then close it back up and put it back. Even if they went full NSA and X-rayed parts of the house, it'll just look like part of the device. You think the FBI won't tear apart everything they need to? And what TV nowadays has enough room to cram a USB in? I'll put it in a safe place with my keys. Can never find the busted things when I want them, so it should be fine. In my copy of Mass Effect Andromeda, break a light bulb in a way that you can place a USB inside it and glue the base back on. The bulb won't work, but you can still screw it back into the socket. Then screw the bulb in the closet or basement. The key word here is hide. This implies that I want it back, not lost forever. Remove the knob from a door and drop the USB drive inside the door. In my house, I could toss it in my scrap electronics room. Let it get lost among the Ataris, Apple S, Mac SEs, data cables from the early 70s, the stack of 8086 motherboards, etc. Take other USB drives and hide them around. One in the couch cushions, one under the carpet, one with a string tied to it and drop down a vent. Insert one rectally, and on like that. Let them find the fake ones. Attach it to a drone and land the drone somewhere else entirely. I don't think that you can hide it anywhere that it won't be found. If it's important enough, no two bits of wood in your house will be touching each other by the time they're done. This what kinda time frame is the FBI working with? If they only have a day, I'm reasonably confident they won't find it, but give them a week or more, then it doesn't matter how clever or hard to get to the spot is. Real talk, as there are dogs, I'd have 2 drives. One, I'd put in the plastic cavity of a favorite Transformers figure's arm leg. This would be the first one they find, as it is usually an arm's length of my computer. They never hook them up in the field because of the dangers of things like USB collars, so chances are they'd be satisfied they found my hidden data. I would get brought in, questioned, held for as long as they could legally hold me without pressing charges, then released, and they'd need a new warrant to research, which would take more than 30 minutes, and give me plenty of time to absolutely destroy the flash chip in the real drive, which would be hidden, possibly in a wall panel or somewhere less obvious than right next to my computer. My ass works fine until the sniffer dogs start barking at you, and then you see the police officer pull out some rubber gloves. Hide it in butt of one of the sex slaves I have locked up in the basement. They'll be thrown off the trail once they find my dungeon. Nice try, police, detectives and some FBI agents. Thanks, dude. I mean, what? Inside my anti-tank mine. With that much time, could probably slide out the transmission of my car enough to stick it inside, without fully taking off the transmission. Just remember not to drive the car until you get it out. I've got a story about this. You see, my brother's a big duck off nonce, and one time he got caught by some pedo hunters. You know, the people online that pretend to be 7 years old. Well, they told the police, and so a couple of weeks later they came to the house with an arrest warrant and a search warrant for the premises. They were looking for USB drives and SD cards, and they took all the computers and such in the house. Anyway, so what they do when they're searching your house is first they search you, so they do the standard airport pat down and empty your pockets. Then they take you around the house and go through everything, and you have to watch, for like legal reasons. But they really do go through everything. These people were flicking through books and opening DVD cases, just really going through everything. Anyway, they get up to my bedroom and I'm having to watch these big ducking troopers going through all my stuff. One of them was an old bald guy, properly Glasgow butch, and he was pretty nice for a man that looked like a potato. But he was searching my room and reached under my bed, and I swear to God the first thing he took out was my fleshlight. He takes it out and goes, "What's this, big man?" I said, "It's a fleshlight." Which sounds like a bad idea, but you're not going to lie to the police. But he goes, "A what? A fleshlight? What's a fleshlight?" "It's a silicone vagina in a tube." So he kind of scoffs, then twists the top of the thing and sees this fake vagina looking back at him. He looks at me, the fleshlight, me, the fleshlight, and then sighs and says, I'm going to have to search this. So takes his fingers and puts them into the fleshlight and starts feeling around in there. Finds nothing. Takes his fingers out, screws the top back on, then puts it on my desk, turns to me and says, I'll just leave that there for you, big man. What he didn't know was the fleshlight opened from both ends, and so at the bottom end, which is the non-duckable end, I had some tabs in a plastic bag. So if you want to hide anything from the police, be it USB or drugs, always hide it in the non-duckable end of a fleshlight. I have it on good authority that they have dogs that can smell these types of devices. Behind the dong in the grandfather clock hanging chimes. It's dark back there, so you have to feel your way because it's out of sight. A perfect hiding place for the USB drive. Page 2 of Google search results. Have you seen my craft room? Even I can't find half the stuff I know isn't there. If you change USB to small bag of very illegal weed and ask your question in r/trees, you may get some really creative answers. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.